Good evening, Wisconsin. Happy almost election day. We are just 7 days away from the November 3rd general election. Welcome to the USA Today Network, Wisconsin's Election Day questionnaire with USA Today Network, Wisconsin politics reporter Haley BeMiller. Haley, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for being here. It's crazy to think that we're only a week away after what feels like an election cycle that's lasted for 2 years now.
Yeah, definitely has continued. So
yeah, we're just
and
here.
you,
We're just here tonight. We know things, particularly with the COVID-19 pandemic. Elections are looking a lot different than they usually do, and things are kind of crazy right now. So, we're just here to answer any questions you all may have about Wisconsin or what your communities are doing to conduct an election safely next week. So, as we're chatting here, feel free to put any questions that you have in the comments. We just ask that, you keep the conversation civil so we can have an informative discussion here tonight, and keep the questions, related to, what's going on in Wisconsin or in your community.
Yeah, very well put. And as you can see over to the side of the display here, we do have some topics that we are going to go ahead and dive into while you come up with questions. Please feel free to just type the question in the box. We will receive it and be able to hopefully answer it as best we can. But to dive in, you mentioned COVID, Haley, and how are municipalities in Brown County or across the Wisconsin area dealing with COVID or responding to it?
Yeah, well, I think, the biggest thing that I know a lot of municipalities have been doing is pushing early voting, and either through the mail or doing in-person early voting, which we're already seeing high numbers on that front. The Associated Press reported today that almost 1.5 million absentee ballots have been returned statewide, which is, just
Wow.
an unprecedented number for Wisconsin. And I got some information from the clerk in Wausau earlier today, and half of their registered voters requested were sent absentee ballots, and over 7,000 have been sent back by mail, and over 2,000 people have voted early in person. So again, high numbers, in part, because municipalities are sort of encouraging this. But in addition to that, they recognize that people are going to be voting in person on election day at the polling places. And so this is going to vary by community, but, generally speaking, based on what we've seen in August and April, there's going to be, they're going to be promoting social distancing, and in some cases, maybe putting markers or tape on the ground. You're going to see your poll workers more likely than not wearing masks. There's going to be hand sanitizer available, plexiglass barriers up between poll workers and voters. And I know some communities have also been doing providing single-use pens, or so they can sanitize their pens for people, so people aren't touching them back to back.
And yeah, definitely so. What do people need to bring with them to the polls? First off, related to COVID-19, do they need to bring a mask?
Well, there is a statewide mask mandate in place, but the Wisconsin's Election Commission has said that voters are not required to wear face coverings. It's highly encouraged, but again, it's not a requirement to vote at the polls next week. As usual, voters should bring their voter or their identification with them as well, part of the typical process that they go through to make sure that they are verified. And those are really, the main things that people need to make sure that they bring.
And while there is a mask mandate in effect, will poll workers then be wearing masks also, or there will be PPE and stuff available for them as well, also, correct?
Yep. The Elections Commission in general encourages poll workers to follow any state or local mandates, and of course there is a state mandate right now. There are, municipalities like Green Bay have been able to take advantage of grant funding to help ensure that poll workers have the protective equipment that they need to keep themselves safe. As that, that has been a concern for poll workers and a reason that we saw some worker shortages in the spring.
Definitely so. And to your knowledge, are most communities better staffed this time around regarding poll workers?
That's definitely what I'm hearing in Green Bay, and I believe Green Bay is up to, I want to say they're over 350 poll workers now, and that the numbers were way lower in the spring. So I think there's definitely been an effort to recruit people, and even in some cases recruiting high school students, with the understanding that a lot of poll workers historically have been elderly and are therefore at a higher risk of contracting the virus and may want to stay home next week.
Certainly so. And a little bit earlier, you had mentioned that there was just a ridiculous number of absentee requests so far. I think you said something like 1.5 million. Now, I'm guessing that a lot of those ballots have not been returned yet. Some probably have, but not all. For those who are still sitting on their absentee ballot or have yet to request it, when are they due?
So absentee ballots are due at 8 p.m. on Election Day, and that is a deadline that has been moving back and forth a little bit because there's been some litigation that could have changed it, but the Supreme Court just ruled yesterday and sealed the deal, and so ballots will be due at 8 p.m. on Election Day, as usual, as in previous elections. The U.S., for those who still haven't submitted them, your best bet, if you still want to submit an absentee ballot and not go to the polls, is to use a Dropbox in your community, because just to leave enough time, the Postal Service had recommended that anyone wanting to mail an absentee ballot do it by today. So, again, if you still have that at home and need to submit it, your Dropbox is definitely your best bet. And communities across the state have been installing those, recognizing some of the concerns about delays in the mail.
Certainly so. And we will be getting to a reader question in just a moment. Thank you very much for that. But there is still time, however, to request an absentee ballot, correct? If you have not yet?
Yeah, if you have not yet requested an absentee ballot, the official deadline to request one by mail is October 29th. The deadline to request them online has passed. But again, I mean, with just being a week away and, recognizing the time that it takes to get an absentee ballot and to submit one, if you request one at this point, a Dropbox would definitely be, once you get your ballot, a Dropbox would definitely be a more reliable bet than sending it in the mail at this point.
Excellent, thank you. And be sure to check your local elections website or your municipality's website to find out where they have Dropbox locations. I can tell you in Green Bay, there are 5 different locations that you can use, and there's a map on there. So please do find the Dropbox locations if you're going forward. So the reader question from the chat was, does state law provide any protection from people at the polls who are trying to intimidate voters? So what can people expect?
Yes. So in Wisconsin, what is allowed are people called election observers. And according to the Elections Commission, they have to sign in, they have to wear a badge indicating that they're observing an election. They have to stay in a designated area. They cannot, while they're there, they cannot handle any documents. They can't discuss any of the candidates or political parties, or they can't wear any clothing or anything that could potentially be seen as influencing the election. They're also prohibited from interacting with voters. And then the Wisconsin Elections Commission, also provides some information. If you, there's an 800 number you can call if you believe that you've witnessed any attempt at voter intimidation. Another thing that's come up within the context of voter intimidation has been whether firearms or weapons are permitted at polling places. And Green Bay actually just passed a local ordinance that would ban weapons at polling places, but there's no statewide ban on weapons at polling places. And again, that's not to say that someone responsibly carrying doesn't is there, not there to intimidate anyone, but that is just something else that's coming up within the context of this issue as well.
Very, very much so. Thank you very much for that question. Again, if you do have others, please submit them in the chat, and we will track down some answers as best we can, and really appreciate it. Another place that there's been a lot of questions around is whether or not absentee ballots are counted, or how somebody can know whether their absentee ballot has been processed and accepted. I know this came up when I was out talking to voters on the first day of early in-person voting, which we will get to in just a moment. But what is the how can somebody be sure that their absentee ballot has been counted?
Yeah, so when you request an absentee ballot online, myvote.wi.gov allows you to, there's a page where you can track your absentee ballot. You can track it as soon as you requested it, so it'll tell you, if it's been sent out to you, and then when you sent it back, it'll let you know when an absentee ballot has been received. That said, again, people have been dealing with issues like delays in the mail and that kind of thing. So, if you're tracking your absentee ballot and, not seeing it arrive and it's getting closer to election day and you're starting to get uneasy and worried that your vote may not be counting, you are also more than welcome. You can contact your local clerk's office before 5 p.m. Thursday, the 29th, to cancel your absentee ballot and then vote in person if it looks like your absentee ballot may have gotten lost in the mail or something.
Certainly so. Another question from readers in the about absentee ballots. Why is it that that municipalities can't count their absentee ballots in advance?
It's a state law. They have to start. They cannot start counting absentee ballots until polls open on election day. At that point, they will have all day and all night, but again, they can't start that process until 7 a.m. on Tuesday.
And yeah, and that does vary from state to state, hence state law. So you know, it is different in different areas. But you know, there's another question from readers about kind of what is happening with being sure that their ballot is counted. And I mean, again, my Wisconsin vote, myvote.wi.gov is the place to be able to track it. But do you have any updates on what happened with Outagamie County's misprinted ballots?
First, you know, to the point of, you know, whether your ballots are being counted again, you know, just to reiterate, if you are getting, particularly if you submitted an absentee ballot, you know, if it's getting closer and it seems like it got lost or it's not going to arrive in time, again, you have until Thursday to cancel that absentee ballot. And then at that point, you can, you know, go vote on Tuesday on election day. That said, you know, even we do still have another week for absentee ballots to arrive, and they're being submitted every day. But again, that is an option for folks. And then we will follow back up with you guys in a minute regarding the issue in Outagamie County. We're just doing a little bit of research on that.
Definitely so. You know, and you know, so we're talking about counting absentee ballots on election day. They have the day and the night to do so. Do you expect that we will know election results on election night? Oh, wait.
So it's really, that's been a tough one for election officials to say definitively at this point. I talked to someone at the Elections Commission today, and you know, it sounds like they're hoping for results by Wednesday morning, but it'll definitely be late Tuesday night or early Wednesday. You know, they obviously have a lot of absentee ballots to count. Some municipalities and counties so there are 39 municipalities that count their absentee ballots at a central location as opposed to counting everything at individual polling places. So those municipalities have the option to report some incomplete partial results. And they've been instructed, if they're going to do that, to make very clear to voters that the results they're reporting are not complete. But Brown County, I know, for example, is not going to do that. They're going to make sure that when they post results, that it's everything, that it's absentee votes and in-person votes. So I think, again, that's just going to be something that varies by community, and any municipality that makes a decision to report partial results has just been instructed again to make clear that they're labeled as partial results.
You know, back to the question about Outagamie, for those who may not be in the Appleton area, about 13,000 ballots in the Outagamie and Calumet County area had a misprint of a timing mark along their edges. And so the electronic tabulators can't read them, or they can't count the ones with the airs on them. So, Haley, what kind of situation is, or kind of what's the status on that now?
Yeah, so looking at some information from Outagamie County, officials there say that, your vote will still be counted even if your absentee ballot had that misprint. And however, if you have an absentee ballot and it has a misprint, you should not fill in the misprinted area. If your ballot does have the misprint and you want a new ballot, the voter can vote and return the ballot to their municipality, and it'll be counted on election day. The voter can also contact their local clerk to cancel the ballot before Thursday. And then, of course, again, you have the option to vote in person if you have not completed your absentee ballot. But, again, this is, really boils down to, from the county's perspective, that, voters don't need to do anything. Your vote will still be counted. And they're just...
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're going to share, and we're going to share, since this is a big question, understandably, that people have, there's also some information that we're going to share in the chat as well, so people can read this themselves and share it with anyone who may have similar questions.
Definitely so. Thank you. And then onto early in-person voting. That is still going on. How has early in-person voting been going again?
Yeah, so excuse me. So that occurs in your local clerk's office. You can check the hours on myvote.wi.gov. The date and times vary. Generally speaking, people can vote early in person through November 1st, but again, that depends locally what what the hours are. Again, as with the regular absentee ballots, that's another thing we're hearing a lot of people are doing. Green Bay saw some pretty significant lines on their first day of early in-person voting. This is an option, I think, that appeals to people who still want to go to the polls and do that act of voting, but maybe don't want to do it on election day when it's a little bit busier. And again, I think I mentioned Wausau's numbers earlier, but
yeah,
about 2,100 of their registered voters have voted in person so far. So again, that's proving to be another pretty popular option.
Well, certainly so. And across municipalities, it is not, those lines, especially on the first day, obviously, people want to do it and get it out of the way. But on that first day, it wasn't, just Green Bay or Wausau where there was a line. I mean, there were lines in De Pere, in the villages. It was, it has become an extremely popular option, it seems, and one that, as you said, you can still take advantage of for another couple of days, still, if you do want to go and vote in person like that. So we will move on to, did we talk about when early in-person voting ends? We did, right?
Yeah, so it goes, it's allowed through November 1st, and then the specific day will depend on your municipality and the hours that they set, because they can set that schedule themselves. But
certainly so. And this is an option in even rural areas also. I know pretty much every township in Brown County has either some early voting hours, or a lot of them are asking that voters who do want to vote early in townships call and schedule an appointment to cast their ballot, which makes sense. So, yes, so so that's about the ins and outs right now of early in-person voting. Let's jump to voter registration. And now you cannot register online. Oh,
it looks like we had one more question in the chat about.
Oh, I did miss that. Yes, if somebody votes by mail, can their in-person vote count also? How can they double check?
So the short answer is no. Wisconsin has a lot of has several safeguards in place to ensure that people can't vote twice. So when you're showing up, if you're showing up to the polling places next week, the poll workers will look you up to make sure that that you haven't already cast an absentee ballot. The state maintains a database that tracks ballots to make sure that everyone only has one vote counted. That said, again, as I said before, that doesn't mean you can't change your mind about voting by mail. Again, you have until Thursday if you want to cancel your absentee ballot. If you have not filled out your absentee ballot yet, you can just go ahead and show up at the polls, and you don't need to bring your unfilled absentee ballot or anything. But you can just go ahead and show up and vote in person. But there are several checks in place to make sure that people will not be able to vote twice.
And yeah, if you have sent your mail-in ballot filled in and sent in the mail, you will have to cancel it, or you will have to, it sounds like you might have to contact your clerk to sort of get that addressed.
Yeah, if you've already submitted an absentee ballot, if you've already sent it in the mail, but you changed your mind, you want to show up next week, you do have to contact your clerk's office to cancel that. If you have not filled out your absentee ballot, then you can just go ahead and show up on election day. You don't need to worry about contacting the clerk or anything.
And yeah, another piece of advice from the Wisconsin Elections Commission is do not try to cancel your ballot at the polling place. Unless you cancel it in advance, you are not eligible to vote in person on election day. So that is something that you do have to take care of before Tuesday, November 3rd, should you wish to cancel it. Definitely a good question. Thank you very much for that. And so should we jump to voter registration?
Sure.
All right. So we'll jump to voter registration. We did get another question about receiving the ballot by mail. That is, again, you can do that on myvote.wi.gov. You can track your ballot if you have mailed it in and follow the procedures left in a Dropbox. It will update and show you that your ballot has been received and, I believe, accepted. But on voter registration, can somebody still register, Haley?
Yeah, so there are a couple ways. The deadline for registering online has passed, but you have until 5 p.m. on Friday to register at your clerk's office. And if you're voting at the polls next week, you can still register at your polling place on election day, like you normally do.
Splendid. And you, of course, when you register, need to provide proof of residence, identity, stuff like that. But you should have your voter ID or your ID with you at the polling place anyway if you went to vote. So please keep an eye on that. And then, you know, now that we're in the home stretch, 7 days left before this election, can you give us an update on whether anybody should expect that you know, winners and or you know, winners losers statuses of results on election night is that will Americans have that moment this year?
I can't speak for the country as a whole, and I have a feeling it's going to be different in every state. But in Wisconsin, you know, again, it's really hard to predict at this point. I think the soonest that you know, the Elections Commission is really hoping to have results finalized either late Tuesday or early Wednesday. You know, there's obviously a lot of moving parts, a lot of different counties and municipalities that are counting votes, but it seems like you know, a lot has been put in place since April to you know, make the process more efficient with the increase in absentee ballots. You know, it sounds like it may not be that night, but it sounds like their hope is that if it's not that night, it won't be too much longer.
Well, I mean, folks, anything else on your mind, or did we pretty much cover everything? Oh, here we go. Here's a question. What can you expect on election day in terms of turnout, or what should voters be prepared for?
Yeah, so I mean, given, you know, this just these incredible numbers of absentee ballots, you know, I definitely, it seems like election day is going to be a little bit lighter than usual. You know, I think election officials really, you know, are emphasizing that if you do see lines next week, you know, it's not necessarily a sign that everything is going terribly wrong. I mean, even with the you know, high numbers of absentee ballots, this is still expected to be a high turnout election. So there's still definitely going to be folks at the polls, and the lines will probably seem, if there are lines, they will probably seem longer because people will be social distancing. So, you know, just keep that in mind if you're going to the polls next week. You know, I think everyone is hoping for it to go as smoothly as possible.
Very, very much so. And again, if you are in line when polls close, you will be allowed to vote. So, you know, yeah, please just remember, do not be discouraged. You know, it will be, the lines will be a thing. So, and with that, Haley, thank you so much for kind of taking us through everything that is going on and sharing your expertise on what people can expect and you know, kind of how the different forms of voting are possible still. Again, you can vote by absentee, can still request a ballot for another 2 days. Early in-person voting runs through the end of the week, through the weekend, but varies by municipality. Check with your municipal clerk to find out. It is not too late to register to vote. You can register to vote in person on time or on election day. And be sure to watch the USA Today Network Wisconsin for election night results as they are available. Anything else from your end, Haley?
No, thanks to everyone who tuned in tonight and for your questions. And we'll see you all on election day.
All righty. Thank you very much again for joining us today. And please, if you haven't already, go out and vote.